help someone determine whether or not to buy an investment property first or buy a primary residence first. It'll break down the numbers and it'll give you a global view of how much money you're going to make overall. There's a couple premises that we're going to talk about. Number one, if you're going to buy an investment property and you're going to rent afterwards, then your rent should be equal to or less than 80% of your mortgage payment.
Yeah.
Said that, right? And this strategy works very well for mature markets. And what I mean by mature markets, places like San Francisco with extremely high property costs. So places like Los Angeles, where you can't really find anything less than $1 million. I mean, you can find stuff less than $1 million, but they're all like little holes in a wall.
Little dinks.
If you want to find something nice, they're like over $2 million, right? But the rent is still relatively affordable. So this strategy works very well in these very mature markets. We're using $1 million as an example.
Yep.
Put down 5%, and we can change the percentages. Okay, so for example, if you put down 5% versus putting down 20%, we just adjust the percentages all across the board. In this situation or in this scenario, I'm assuming that you're putting down 5% because this is your first primary resident purchase. You're using FHA or primary home loan, so you put down 5% to get in with the lowest down payment so that you can leverage, right? So if you put down 5% down payment on a home, on your $1 million property, the appreciation pay down, I'll just briefly go over this again, after 30 years, every single year, the property should be appreciating at 5%. And you should be looking at properties that have a historic appreciation record of at least 5%, right? This is an average of 5 to 10 years. So first year is worth $1 million. Second year is worth $1,050,000 because it appreciated 5%. But the third year is worth $1,102,500 because it appreciated 5% on the $1,050,000. It did not appreciate 5% on the $1 million as where it started. Make sense? It's appreciated 5% annually based on the previous year's value. So after 30 years, this property would be worth $4.116 million. Every single year, you would have paid in terms of debt service. Okay, debt service is principal and interest, taxes, insurance, right? So everything added up together. You also have to include home insurance because at any given time, your equity, meaning the buyer's equity position, is less than 20%. The banks ask the buyers to pay for mortgage insurance. It's an insurance on the mortgage, right? So any given time your equity position is more than 20%, you can stop paying mortgage insurance. Make sense?
Yeah.
So if you look at down here, it's $6,400 a month. $77,000 a year. In the first 4 years, you're paying $77,000. On the fifth year, however, year 4, the principal balance will be $884,342 divided by the year-end property value of $1.157 million. This puts you at an equity position of 23.6%. So when you have more than 20% of equity in the property, you no longer have to pay for mortgage insurance. So at that time, you may contact the lenders to drop the mortgage insurance. Make sense? And so here, you drop almost, like $600 or something like that. So annually, instead of paying $77,000 a year, now annually, your debt service will be $69,804.
Okay,
because you stop paying mortgage insurance. Make sense?
Yeah.
So at the end of 30 years, your property is worth $4.116 million. You subtract $2.123 million, which is the amount of money that you have paid for debt service. You would have net $1.933 million. So if you were to purchase a primary residence, after 30 years, you can sell the property, or even if you keep the property, just know that you paid $2.13 million for debt service. Your property is worth $4.1 million. Your net will be $1.9 million. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now, that is if you bought a primary residence. Now, what if you said, okay, well, I want to buy an investment property, and I rent out my investment property and subsequently rented a place for me to live, because this way I may be able to earn more money. So let's look at the math, all right? Same scenario, 5% down, but the only difference is now you're buying a multifamily residential rental property, all right?
Yep.
So let me explain what row 9 is. Turnkey cost $60,000, turnkey cost $69,500, turnkey cost $218,000. I'll explain everything in the blue, what that means shortly. But essentially, turnkey cost is everything that costed you money for you to be able to move into the property. That includes down payment, that includes every single fee that you pay, that includes inspection that you pay, that includes everything that you pay, all right? So this is a rough estimate. And all the numbers here, even though it's pretty detailed, they're still estimates of detailed numbers. Make sense?
Yeah.
If you're to really buy this property, there's going to be like plus minus a couple $1,000s. But the point that we're doing this web conference here is to provide you with a set of numbers as a guideline. It's not to give you exact detailed numbers, even though the numbers are kind of detailed, all right? So here on the multifamily property, the turnkey cost is a little bit higher, about $10,000 higher than the single family. Generally, when you purchase a multifamily investment property, the costs are a little bit higher, okay? So let's look at this row here. Appreciation and debt pay down is the same. Starts with $1 million. After 30 years, we're at 4.1 million. So here, 4.1 million. But the debt service part is a little bit different. Okay, for the debt service parts, 4.5% interest, 30-year fixed, blah, blah, blah. Same thing, you're paying $6,400 initially. But the thing is, if this is a true investment property, it should have net positive income, which means that all of the expenses are paid by the rent. Okay, so your initial $6,900 a year needs to be paid by the renters. Make sense? Or else it's not really an investment property. You're negative. Okay, so $6,900 the first year is a $77,000. First 4 years, $77,000. Again, on the third year, you're looking at a reduction in payment because of the mortgage
insurance.
Correct. Reduction.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 30 years, we're at 2.13 million, same thing as in the first example, but here you didn't pay for it, right?
Yeah.
Now let's go to the third metrics, cash on cash return. Your rental property should have 2% increase in net rents because you should build that into rental agreements, okay? And the property management company should know this. If they don't hire them. Let me go over the calculations too. This property should have a cash on cash return of 6.43%. This is not on some numbers I pulled out of my ass. This is actually on, I have experience with this. Let's look at the calculations. So 5% down on $1 million property. This is pretty much the spreadsheet that I use to determine whether or not a property is worthwhile for me to look at. And essentially you input the purchase price, 5% down payment, 1% loan origination fee. Usually it's not that high. It could be lower, it could be higher, but generally it's not that high, okay? Closing cost, another 1%, right? All these numbers are a little bit high because I don't want to be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense? So I make the expenses a little bit high. So when actual numbers come in, they're a little bit lower. I'm happier that way. All right. Rehab, don't worry about that right now. Cash back is something that we negotiate during the purchase. We're not going to talk about that as well. Turnkey cost is sum of all your expenditures for purchasing a home and being able to get into the home or the investment property. All right. Usually right away, I only look at properties where the purchase value is around 100 times the monthly rent. So if the monthly rent of the property is, let's just say $9,000 or $5,000, if it's $5,000, I would pay around $500,000 for it. It's 5,000 times 100. Make sense?
Okay.
And those properties are hard to find, but I find them all the time because now I've developed a network that consistently send me leads that are on that level. All right. So you guys may find something similar, but perhaps not as high. So here, out of the $1 million purchase price, I put current income as 0.09%. Okay. So assuming that you bought 2 fourplexes,
Mm-hmm.
you're able to achieve this. You shouldn't have a hard time achieving this. Okay. Because right now I have a duplexing contract for $450,000, but
Oh,
the income is 4,600. Okay.
okay.
So if you times two is 9,000, and
Yeah.
the purchase
Okay.
price is $900,000. All right. So debt service is again what you pay to service the loan, and generally the tool I use to determine what the debt service is. You go online, you pull up any calculator, but one that I use is Zillow Mortgage. It's
Mm-hmm.
able to give you these calculations very fast. So debt service, $4,800. Out of the operation expenses, you're looking at tax, insurance, mortgage insurance, property management, utilities, vacancies, maintenance, your net. So what you do is you take current income, subtract debt service, subtract operating expenses, and you would arrive at net income, right? And net income, that's on a monthly basis. How you determine the cash on cash return, you take net income, you times that by 12, which will allow you to obtain the annual income. And then you divide it by your turnkey cost, which is total money out of pocket. That's how you determine what the percentage is for your cash on cash return. So this is where the 6.43 came from. So it's not some number I just pulled out of my butt. It's like actual math, all right? So based on 6.43% return on the $69,000 that you have expanded, your annual return is $4,472 from your rental income. This is after taxes. This is after all expenses. This is with vacancies included. If you bought the right property, you should be able to net around this every single year. After 4 years, your mortgage insurance will also drop from your net rental income. Well, in the first example, when the mortgage insurance dropped, it affected you in a way where if you were to buy that property, that when the mortgage insurance drops, that's a saving to you. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So now you pay less mortgage, right?
Yes.
In the second example, your renter, first of all, your renters paid the 69,000, or excuse me, 77,000, $69,000. Here, though, when the mortgage insurance dropped, it means that you may have a higher return now because it was calculated as one of your expenses. So which means that your net is at $372 because of the mortgage insurance. If you add the mortgage insurance back into it, now your net income is $974 a month, right? And if you times that by 12, it's $11,696 instead of, and then $974 instead of just $372. So it impacts your returns significantly. Make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
Because you remember
So the 11,000 is basically the annual then.
which 11,000?
The one that you just calculated out from
Yeah,
900
yeah,
after taking out the homeowner's insurance or home mortgage insurance.
yeah. And so here on this part, now when you do the CCNRs, you're getting 4,000, 4,000, 4,000, 4,000, and suddenly you're making more money because you're paying less mortgage insurance. Make sense? So now your net is going to be $12,064 because you increase the rent over time, 2%, 2%, 2%, and then suddenly you stop paying the mortgage insurance. So now you're at 12,000, and you're 12,300, 12,500. Long story short, after 30 years, your net income would have been $424,000. Now you have one more metric, okay, which is your rent. Because assuming that you bought this 5% down,
Mm-hmm.
you bought it as owner-occupied rental property, you reside in one, you rent out 3 others. Let's just say this is a fourplex as an example. And then the question is, why would you rent another prop? Why would you have another rental expense if this property was owner-occupied, right? I said, buy this property as owner occupied, reside in it for the least amount of time possible, whatever the law says that you have to reside in this property for it to count as owner occupied rental property. Right
Mm-hmm.
after that, you're going to move out and you're going to go rent another property so that you can rent out your existing unit. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And your rent should be equal to or less than 80% of your debt service. So if your debt service is $6,400 a month, This is PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. I'm talking about your rent should be less than just the principal and interest payment, all right? And you'll be able to calculate that, look that up on Zillow Mortgage, figure out what your PI payment is, and if equal to less, your rent should be equal to or less than 80% of that, okay? And that comes out to be about $3,800 a month, and a year is $46,000 a year. All right, so $1.3 million is the sum of all the rents that you have paid leasing outside of your own home. I mean, excuse me, besides your rental property, you're leasing a home to live in, leasing an apartment, whatever it is. So what is your net? Your net is calculated by taking your total equity position in your new home value after 30 years. You skip the $2.13 million of debt service that you would have paid, which is paid by the renters, right? And you take the $4 million, you have to add the $424,000 of net income that you have received from this rental property, right? And then you subtract $1.386 million that you have paid in rents. And what you get is $3 million. So what I did was I took the $4 million, I added the rental income, I subtracted total rents that you paid, and I subtracted the initial turnkey cost. Okay? And my net income here is $3 million versus $1.9 million. So it's almost $1 million in addition.
Yeah.
All right. So I mean, like, it's very clear. If you buy residence to live in versus buying investment property, renting it out, and getting at least 6 to 8% cash on cash return, and then also paying rent that is 80% of your debt. So if you just follow this, that's extra $1 million for you. All right. Now, in the third scenario here, which is probably this is just a regular investor loan. You put down 20% on a non-owner occupied multifamily rental property. If you look at what that looks like, for $1 million, if you put down 20%, it's $200,000, 1% loan origination fee, 1% closing costs on the value. Turnkey cost is $218,000. They say same current income of $9,000. Your debt service is $4,542. And if you notice, the interest rate here is 4.5%. The interest here is 5%.
Yeah.
5.5% because generally when you just buy it as an investment property, the interest rates are a little bit higher. That's how it is, right? And the operating expenses, still tax the same, insurance the same. There's no mortgage insurance here. You see that? Because off the bat, my equity position is at 20%. Property management, same. Utilities, vacancies, maintenance. Off the bat, my net is $1,200.46. The net is a lot higher than the $372, but the CC&R is still at 6% range. And the reason for that is because I put a lot more money down. Make sense? I put $218,000 down. How cash on cash return, what it's telling you is what is the amount of returns that you're getting for the amount of cash that you put down. So here, 6.46, you take the $1,246, you times 12, which gets you the annual net income, and then you divide it by the turnkey cost, $218,000. Here is 6.86%. See that?
Right. So that basically, the $1,200 just basically comes from not having to pay the mortgage insurance on basically a monthly basis.
And a lower debt service.
Right.
Because I put more money down, getting $800,000 in loans instead of $950,000 in loans.
Yep.
Okay. And here, turnkey cost $218,000, CC&R 6.86%. If you look at this row here, appreciation versus debt pay down, same thing after 30 years, I'm at 4.1 million. My total debt obligations would have paid, why is this 1.996? Oh, because I put more money down. So now it's at $1.9 million, right? And again, I didn't pay for this. My renters did. On the third here, we have our cash on cash return, $14,000 a year annually. So if you look at 14,000, increase 2%, increase 2%. After 30 years, I would have net $606,000. And then the last metric is that I use my monthly rent, right, which is less than equals 80% of the debt service. I'm at $43,000 a year. After 30 years, I'm at $1.3 million. Here, the calculation is if you use $4.116 million plus the $606,000 of net income from rents minus $1.3 million I would have paid in rents. Here, my net income, or excuse me, I would have net 3.196 million instead of 3.084 million. Okay? But here, you have to understand, I put down significantly more money initially, but I have about extra $100,000 to show for it. So between these two, I'll still put down 5%, leverage a little bit hard. After that first initial one, you're going to have to go this 20% down for the investor route, which is what most investors do now. And in current climate, you're talking about COVID climate, right? It's good to have some skin in the game. It's good to have some equity in the game. So this way your pillows and you have a little more cushion. All right, questions?
Okay, so basically for, let's say, the dark blue, right? Is that the one that you said that is owner occupied?
This one? Or are you talking about this one?
Or is it the middle one that's owner occupied?
The middle one's owner occupied.
The middle one's owner occupied.
That's the only way you'll be able to get the 5% down.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And typically, how many years was it? 3 or 4 that you have to live in it in order to qualify for the 5% down? And it has to be owner occupied, where you have to live in it for, I believe, 3 years or something. Oh, it says 2 consecutive years.
You can live there. You can have a cousin living there helping you with the rent. You have a sister. There's so many,
Yeah.
You work it out, all right?
2 years is not that bad.
No, it's not. Cool. So any questions with this spreadsheet?
Being a first-time investor, I guess it's because in our situation, if we're planning to buy an investment property, it's going to be mostly, I'm guessing, like you said, in the Sacramento area or East Bay area. So more likely than not, it's going to be very difficult for us to be owner occupied. So it looks like we're going to be going more so the route of
100%.
Yes.
Very doable.
And is it typically how most investors start now? I guess first-time home investors start? Okay,
depends on how aggressive you are. If you're able to find a property that has good returns, perhaps you even put 5% down owner occupied in the Bay Area somewhere. Live in one unit, rent out the other unit, have the other unit subsidize your rent in the first unit, and then you can still put 20% down on an investment property. Because even if you're looking at, $1 million East Bay somewhere for duplex, you could get, I think my friend bought a duplex somewhere in Oakland or East Bay or something like $400,000, $450,000, something like that. I found a really good deal.
Really?
This was years ago, though. It was 3 years ago. I don't know about that.
Okay.
If you look, you'll find some deals. Okay. And the debt service on even $1 million, that's only, $5,500, $6,000. You can rent out, if you're getting 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom, 1 bath on each side, you can rent out 2-bedroom, 1 bath for $2,000, so you can pay for no problem, right? And then you'll still have enough money left over to buy your investment property with 20% down. So your initial investment, quote unquote investment, owner occupied, multifamily, a duplex, whatever it is in the Bay Area, let's just say for $800,000, $1 million, you're paying, $50,000, 5% down. And if you have capital left over, couple $100,000, you can use that as 20% down to buy a multifamily investment property. Make sense? So if I were in your shoes and I have enough money, I will buy a duplex, rent out another one, have them subsidize my rent, even though you're not living large, but you're setting a very solid foundation for yourself for the future.
Right.
And then if you have, once you do that first, second step, you buy investment property, 20% down.
Got it. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot more sense. And is there any way that you can send me that Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, I'll share this with you.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. So I'll go ahead and share that with Tracy when she's done with work. And hopefully we'll get in touch shortly. Let me know when you have like another like either a group Zoom meeting or anything like that, or you're hosting any type of sessions. We'd love to hop on if we are available.
Awesome. Yeah, well, a lot of these, people talk about like their personal finances. I have to figure out
Mhm.
like some general topics that people want to know, and I'll start setting up these calls because I feel like it's very these like smaller sessions. People are able to get their questions answered
Mhm.
as shy. If it's in a group of like 50 people, might not
That's
want
true.
a group less than five.
Mhm.
People are usually more vocal.
That's true. Yeah, especially when we're just starting out and there's a lot of other people out there who know a lot more about the game and the business. So,
Yeah. But it's kind of like going to the gym. You go into the gym like, and you see all the buff people. It's straight up. Like they didn't show up at the gym buff. They're buff because they start going to the gym.
yeah,
Yeah, but don't worry.
so,
Everybody
sounds
starts
good.
somewhere.
Well,
All right, cool. If you don't have any questions, I'm gonna take a break. I got another call coming up,
perfect.
and we'll chat soon. I'll send you those videos too. I just got the other video back. We finally like edited everything.
Uh-huh.
Again, I just couldn't take the fact that the numbers there was only so few numbers. I mean, I got my point across, but I felt like
Yes, you did.
more details involved, and that's why I created this spreadsheet.
Oh, that definitely create a more broad idea of like our, I guess, options wise.
Hmm.
And seeing because it's very realistic in where our situation is and whether or not we kept on debating whether or not to buy a rental property or if we buy investment property like out in the East Bay, is it going to be practical for us to actually live in it, commute to work, or just do the 20% down and just continue renting over here over in the peninsula while we still work. So, I mean, it definitely breaks down the numbers a lot more and basically gives us a better idea of how we can position ourselves to purchase our first property. All
Cool.
right.
Glad. Yeah, we'll chat soon. And if anytime you guys have any questions, just
Mhm.
like note them down. So just send me a list
Okay.
of all the questions, and then we can get on the
Mhm.
call or something.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
good. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, for sure. All right, bud. Chat soon.